Welcome back to Faith and Fire. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that is very polarizing. We're going to talk about politics and how they show up in the church. So as we head into this season of politics, and it's November, and a year from now, November, we're going to have some really spicy conversations going. So before we get there, I want to talk about how that impacts our faith. Do politics belong in the pulpit? Should we be talking about politics in our church? And as we head into the season of campaigning, should we be having politicians in our church? These are all questions I want to explore. And so to talk about that conversation today, we have three guests, one that you may recognize, Dr. Joy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Joy, also known as Sherilyn, and I'm a presiding elder in the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
Hi, I'm Evelyn Creel, and I belong to the Church of Evelyn.
Hello, my name is Elder Akira, and I am ordained through Imani Christian Cathedral.
Okay, perfect. Well, now that we know who's at the table, let's get into this tea. Okay. So when we think about politics in the church, where do we stand? So I'll do a little roll call. Like, okay, so Dr. Joy, what is your opinion on faith and politics? Do they mix?
They do. My stance is I'm a table flipper.
Okay, what does that mean?
So in the Bible, people point to that Jesus went into the temple in the last week and flipped over tables, and they usually assert that he was just angry. It's not about that at all. It was about access to worship.
Okay,
and he was righting a wrong.
He was righting wrongs.
Yes.
Okay, so how does that relate to politics?
That is a politic.
Okay.
When you're fighting for the oppressed, when you're fighting for equality and equity, that is a social justice issue, which is politics.
Can I just say I'm excited? I hear an excitement in your voice that I don't know that I've heard in past episodes. So I'm totally down for this conversation. We're going to table that one, no pun intended. And we're going to see Evelyn talk to us about your thoughts on the topic.
I actually am not for politics in faith or in your churches, actually. I believe everybody does have their own beliefs, but I don't think it should be preached from the pulpit.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Perfect.
Correct. I agree with Evelyn that politics exist within any functioning body.
Okay.
Should they be allowed access to sway people either direction? No, I disagree.
See, when you said politics exist in any body, I instantly thought of Sister So-and-so and Sister So-and-so and playing politics in the church, which I don't know that that's where we anticipated this would go, but that also seems to come into play. Maybe that goes to that table flipping. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I see that we're all excited to have this topic. So Dr. Joy, I'm gonna come bring it back to you because you're ready to dive in and bite and talk to us about flipping some tables. So when we look at the history, and I know that you've been in the AME Church for a while, and we look at the history of the church, how has politics played into that? And how is the social justice topics that you talked about, how have those played into the conversation?
So let me start by saying this, that things can be political and politics can come in, but any time that you are a voice for the oppressed, you are involving yourself in social justice. And to me, when I read about the Jesus in the Bible, that was all he was about.
Okay.
Was going after the least of them. He was against sexism and ageism and all of those isms in trying to find equity for people in all around. So to me, when I look at it from that definition, and it probably is a definitional thing, but when I look at it from that definition and the work that Jesus did, I'm clear that my faith is aligned with the politics of Jesus.
Okay, the politics of Jesus specifically. And it's interesting because as you were saying that, the first thought that came to mind is that what politics is about these days? And so I would love for you to articulate what I just saw in your face.
So here's the other piece for me is all of those politicians who are spouting that they are affirming a faith in Christ are not acting like Christ.
Ooh, okay, this is an ouch moment.
It is an ouch moment because I cannot understand how you can say you are for Christ and then want to put policies in place that divide families. You are for Christ, you want to put policies in place that hurt children. You are for Christ, but you want to put policies in place that keep us divided. Christ was about unity.
Interesting. So what I'm hearing and what you're saying is you said, yes, they mix, but it's a certain kind. Like it really matters what place it's coming from.
So it's not certain kind. Now, I don't do, and I say this and say at the same time that I don't do politics well.
Okay. What is that? You don't do politics well?
No. Like I don't do manipulative politics.
Ooh.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. My career has not been one of trying to manipulate a situation or people to get ahead. Mm-hmm. I don't do that well, because to me, then I'm doing the very thing I'm fighting against.
Yeah. That's probably a good thing not to do well.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So protocol has its place, but politics in corporate, politics in church, politics anywhere like that is seeking to divide. It's a divide and conquer. Now you done brought me back to good and evil.
Okay. And that's interesting because I think that's a huge contrast to the type of politics that you were talking about when you said, yes, it belongs in the church. And it may just be that politics have shifted. And the shift in politics, because when you talk about the divisiveness, and not all the politics, right? Not everything is created equal. Like, you have both ends of the spectrum, but when you think of the political sphere these days, that divisiveness is at the core. It's, I have to define myself in opposition to the other.
Right. And so equality and equity are different.
Yeah.
My faith and political stance, or that people that I advocate for, is from an equity perspective. Mm-hmm. And that your access may not look the same as mine, but you do have access.
Okay. So Evelyn, you were talking a little bit about how you feel politics don't belong in the church. And is it at all related to kind of the topic we're talking about now with it being decisive? Does it come from a different place?
Well, the problem is, and I think this is where we, as a society, everybody has different beliefs, definitely. And the people that are in, just like when we pick our people to be
the
politicians, yes,
yeah.
and we bring them in, we're hoping that when we bring them in, they're going to vote for or take care of all the people in their congregation, basically, or all of their constituents underneath them. And unfortunately, they don't always, because they utilize their own thought processes when it comes to religion and then sway their religious ways. So when you choose to be in what's the word? An elder or anybody that's in or priest or I grew up in a Lutheran church, so our pastor, if they use their influences to sway based on their religious beliefs, that's not doing it for the whole congregation. So I feel that you should never, ever sway anybody in your congregation or to vote the way that you believe only, because that's not how everybody believes. Everybody comes in with their different beliefs. Mm-hmm. And when you read something in the Bible, you can take it from a different perspective as well. And there's guidance, but there's a line in that guidance. And that's where I think it can be swayed the wrong way.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I've experienced that in some churches, that they try to sway you, and hence why it's kept me away from a church.
What happened?
The pastor started preaching that, and it was during a political time frame, about abortion and other topics that were very swayed in a certain way and trying to guide the congregation a certain way.
Okay.
And it was not my beliefs. Mm-hmm. So it pulled me away from him.
Okay.
So that's why.
And so I think when that brings up a really good question when you think about that at the macro level is, yes, it's a politically divisive issue, but where is the line between politically divisive and just divisive? Like if they pull something out of the Bible and interpret it a certain way, whatever the topic may be, how is that different from the politically divisive things, which they also pull from the Bible and interpret a certain way?
Well, to
Dr. Joy?
to agree with Dr. Joy. I would say that there are politicians or politics, and there is social justice. In that, I do not think that they are synonymous. I think politics has a lot to do with manipulation and the swaying of someone's thoughts, whereas social justice is more about speaking about the truth, and this is what it is, presenting the facts and allowing people to still have a choice.
Okay.
My perception, when it's political and people allow certain people to come into the temple or into a church or into a particular space and speak, they know when that person comes in where they're going, what they're going to be doing. And those people are allowed to come in based on their perception and what they already know that they stand for. Because they're not going to invite groups that may have the same letter. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to say the letters, but they're not going to invite that group to come in to a church that's maybe black or brown. Okay. So depending on who is allowed to come in, that's political. Social justice is saying, this is what's happening. These are the choices. These are the options, and giving people the information and allowing them to make a choice versus swaying them in one particular way based on who's going to give you money. A lot of times that's what it is. Who's paying, who's the most popular, who's going to bring the most people into the congregation on that Sunday for offering.
Okay.
Just saying, it happens.
And it does happen. And I think what I'm hearing is, and we're not so far apart, I think what we're hearing is some abuse of the power of the pulpit, which is different from, does faith have any interaction with politics or with social justice? When I was pastoring and was in charge of a pulpit, there were people came to me all the time to say, can I have some of your people's time? Can I say something? And my challenge to them was not only what are you going to say, but why do you want to come and speak with us?
What was their answer?
Right. And at first they stammered like, because you're in my district, that's not good enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
What do you believe? Right. And it's not about swaying. And I hear what Evelyn is saying, because I've seen it and that's what we're seeing today. The divisiveness is trying to get somebody over to somebody else's side, like this side or this side. Isn't that divisive?
Yeah.
Yes, very.
But that's the climate we're in. Whether it's Israel or the Palestinians, or whether it's Democrats or Republicans, or whether it's Russia or the Ukraine. It's all about divisiveness and power and control. And so people have taken sides, forgetting about the fact that there are real people that are being impacted by this that has nothing to do with either of those political views. The children, when they went into the homes, had nothing to do with the decisions that were being made.
Nothing at all.
On a high level that governs everybody's way of being. I did get a little excited, didn't I?
I'm hearing your
I got
preacher
excited
voice
because
full force.
that's what a table flipper is. That's the movement. Is that and so to bring it down to even a micro level, if I'm seeing that you're being mistreated because of who you are or the color of your skin or a choice that you've made for your life, I'm going to flip some tables.
Okay.
Right?
So what does that look like? What does flipping tables look like in the church?
Sometimes that look like calling people on their stuff.
Ooh.
Right? Like, tell me more about that. I think all people are, if you're not doing this, you're going to hell. Tell me more about that.
And you say it just like that?
Yeah. And I challenge them. I say, help me understand how you came to that conclusion. And so I try to use words that still will leave a person whole. At the end of the day, my faith in politics says I'm about trying to see where a person is and make sure that at the end of the day, they're whole.
Yeah.
Period.
So flipping tables doesn't necessarily have to mean, and I think you touched on it earlier, it's not necessarily coming out of a place of anger. It's not that you're like, you could flip tables by asking a simple question. You could flip tables by starting a podcast and asking questions.
There you go. I have a shirt for you, by the way. I do have a shirt for you.
As you can see, my shirt is blank today, and I have more faith-based shirts on the way, but I would love a table flipper shirt.
I brought a table flipper shirt with me.
See, if I had known that, I would have thrown it on. We could have been table flipping together.
Right, but you needed to understand what you're wearing first.
Yes.
Okay.
So now you're able to wear it.
Now I'm able to wear it.
So you're understanding.
Yeah.
I have passed the prerequisite classes. Now I understand.
Yeah. But we all are here, and I would support your view because it's your view.
Absolutely.
Now, as long as at the end of the day, it's a do no harm.
Amen. Yes.
That's key.
Yeah.
Ooh, if Shari were here, our resident modern spiritual yogi.
She'd be all over this, right?
Oh, yeah. Do no harm.
Just do no harm. Some of the things that we say and we do to one another, we have bought into what we have been taught or what we've seen or what we've read. We haven't, and then it's about a faith thing again. We haven't really sought who we have placed our faith in to say, God, is this what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. So that's so interesting because you're like, we haven't stopped to say, God, is this what you're saying? And Akira, that makes me think of you. And I love that you are in the ministry because I feel like of all the groups that politics maybe, I don't want to say victimized because I feel like that's big, but sometimes it may feel like that. How does it feel to be someone who's super open and to all kinds of communities and then have somebody who claims to be doing it from a place of faith, that claims to be doing it out of a place of, the Bible says, and to feel the divisiveness in a community that you connect with?
The best way to explain that is to give a biblical example where they chose Barabbas. Mm-hmm. The problem is that based on someone's societal level or financial level, that many times based on popularity, not on fairness, there's something that happens. So when Jesus could have been released, if we're going to talk about that, when he could have been released, they said, oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't let him go. Let's give us this other person that we know did something wrong because he's easier to deal with. We don't want to deal with Jesus because he's talking about a whole bunch of crazy stuff that we don't necessarily want to bring ourselves to. And so many times, and I'm saying that, I'm getting somewhere, where in politics, it's when it combines with faith or when it's combined in a sector where there are faith discussions or religious repetitive practices, rather than looking at the social aspect, as Dr. Joy brought up, rather than looking at that, we look at what's popular, what's going to pay, what looks good, what's easy to handle, what's easy to walk around with. I can wear that T-shirt. Mm-hmm. You're comfortable wearing a table flipper T-shirt, but are we going to be comfortable, not you, but will we be comfortable wearing that in other environments? We can wear it in here, but am I going to wear that at, I don't know.
Am I going to wear it to church?
Somewhere else. You know what I mean? Are we going to do that? And that's the issue that we face. It's not that politics do not exist. It's that how is it existing? What is the level of integrity? How are we looking at it? How are we doing it? Are we still messing it up like we did way back when?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So
yes, we are.
Have you seen communities, and I ask this knowing that I may know the answer, have you seen communities that have been victimized almost by politics showing up in the pulpits?
Yes, absolutely. I would give an example, and it was very, which is why I said what I said earlier. I have seen, I'll say, faith administrations allow politicians to come and speak and take up time and do that, requesting time like always. But it'll come with, I will bring this, or I will give this, or I'll make mention of this, or I'll do this. It's some kind of favor. And it's not necessarily for the people of that community. What they are spewing is not feeding, it's pulling. So rather than giving something to the community, they're literally looking to pull from people that already have very little.
Yeah.
But taking advantage of their lack of information. And I don't like that.
I hear these words that we talk about around the tent. I hear divide, pull, like separate. And it's these like visceral. You can just feel and hear it when we talk about it. And I mean, I almost hear that's how it feels. We feel like people are trying to divide us. We feel like people have malintent. And it sounds like when people use politics in a negative way, not to create social justice, but to divide, to pull apart, to victimize, that's what we just don't want to see happen in our churches.
You can't want that and claim to be a person of faith who cares about other people, whoever they are. If I can add on to what Kira said, is another way it shows up, and it may not be a politician coming into this sanctuary. It may just be a large donor, right? Yeah. And now the fellowship hall is named after the donor. Right. Yeah. And so now everybody related to the donor feels like that's their fellowship hall, and they get to say whatever they're going to say. They get to say it because
I'm going to throw it at you.
Because that's just the truth anyhow. Right. And people know it. And so over time, we have worked around that. Right. But we don't like it. Right. And so we stay at some places thinking we can do some good somewhere else, but it exists. And that's another example of politics in the church that's not by a politician.
Yeah.
But are they?
So here's the thing. And I think this is what brings it all around while we are talking about the same things, is when you get down to the definition of politics, politician is a person who practices politics and blah, blah, blah. Then you get down. So it's not about that, because that's going to be with us. And Jesus said the poor would be with us always. But somebody has to speak for the marginalized and the least of these. And that's what he entrusted us to do. Right. So when we allow people into our pulpits who have ulterior motives and their oppression only oppresses further, then we are going against the call that is on our lives.
Yeah. It doesn't matter whether they're running for political office or whether they're just some big donor or whether they're just somebody from the, who just wanted to come up and preach. If they're going to divide your congregation.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're like, that's why I thought I had nothing to contribute.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I didn't want to call you out, but you were like, why am I going to talk on that topic? I don't have anything to say about that. And then your preacher voice came out.
That's good though. But it's true. Politicians and social justice, politics and social justice, they are not synonymous. While immediately they could look synonymous, but they really are not. I feel like politicians, it's not necessarily someone running for a position in office. It's someone looking to sway your opinion without giving you all of the information, but giving you just their perspective. Whereas social justice will say, hey, I'm counting you, I'm counting you, I'm counting you. These are the things. What do we want to do as a community? For me, that's the difference.
It's inclusive. It's the point is the opposite of what we said, right? It's to bring together. It's to include. It's to make us whole as opposed to tear us apart and take from.
Well, social justice, isn't it just, it's actually, you're choosing that social justice. But when you go to church, you're choosing to be guided by the person of the main part of the church. And you're looking for them to be unbiased about that and talk truly just from the Bible and from Jesus's word and God's word. So that's where I feel that when you do start bringing politics into that conversation, it cannot be from a swayed side. It's got to be a full-on description. Okay, so if you're going to take one thing from the church, from the Bible, and you're going to discuss it, it's going to be from all perspectives. It cannot just be from one perspective, because you have to consider everybody in your congregation and how each of them are going to see it. And that's what I want to see.
Let me share this because you're going to need another session. But when I think about this, and see, church hurt is real. This is an example of church hurt. Right? It's real.
That's another episode too.
When I think about this, and for example, when I was preaching on a consistent basis, I always had to ask God, who are you sending today?
Okay.
Because, and then just in my mind, I might not know, but the Holy Spirit would know. And so I would never preach against single mothers. What?
That'd be kind of weird.
Wasn't Jesus's mother single?
Come on.
Right?
Yes.
And as a child, do you think he did not get taunted about, well, who your daddy?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Jesus understands the plight of children of single parents.
Mm-hmm. And she
He
didn't have
was
to go
one.
to the front of the church and get shunned either.
Right.
But that's another story. Go on.
No, that is the story. That's part of this whole thing.
Right.
We take bits and pieces, and because we have an ideology about how that needs to be interpreted and how it needs to play out,
Come on.
that's what we speak. We don't speak, we're supposed to be speaking about love. We're supposed to be speaking, now God is a God of vengeance and judgment and all this, but he first and foremost is a God of love, and he created us out of love.
Come on.
There's so many sermons in this, this one
Listen,
conversation.
We about to have praise and worship. You keep playing with me,
You
man.
singing?
So,
What song we singing?
let's go. Oh, come on. We're playing.
She's basic.
I almost did it. I'm
Basic.
Right there.
If we believe that we are all created in God's image, let's start there.
Yeah.
So when I see you and I see you and I see you, even though we all look different, we think different, we dress differently, we still are all in the image of. So that would beg to differ, or beg to let's look at what the image of God is. The image of God must be diverse.
Must be.
Yes.
So we kind of look alike.
Yeah, that part. But the image of God has diversity in it. How can I exclude you? When you too are made in the image of God. How can I exclude anybody who's short or tall or thinks a certain way when that person and all of who they are came from the Creator?
Mm-hmm. Now, that's a rhetorical question, but the real answer is, how can I exclude you? Exclude folk from fear.
It is, but
from a
it
place of
doesn't
fear.
have anything to do
And
with
it's
their
pitiful.
faith. If you examine your faith,
How
and
much
that's where we
faith you got
started with.
when you're fearful.
Faith and politics. That's where we came from, right?
Right. Yep.
And faith and fear they're like oil and water.
And that's the problem.
That's another T-shirt. You know what? That's actually a shirt that my church has right now, is worship without fear. And so I think that's another shirt. Like,
We're
Because faith
afraid
and
of
fear
each
don't go
other.
together. That's what I'm saying. When you're fearful, you're afraid. You're afraid to give both sides. You're afraid to say
afraid.
this is what the social issue is.
I'm afraid to let you decide for yourself because I'm afraid that you're not going to decide what I want you to
I'm
decide.
afraid of rejection. I'm afraid of you rejecting what I really want to do. So therefore, I'm going to choose the political realm, and I'm going to feed you only what I want you to hear because I'm afraid you might not choose me.
Okay. Whew.
I agree.
Okay. So,
And I'm sorry that happened to you, by the way.
yeah.
You know, where it caused you to leave the church. But what I'm hearing, and I'm hopeful that leaving a church building or leaving a congregation does not mean the person has left God.
Nope.
Yep.
I have not left God. I speak to God every day.
Beautiful.
Hence why the Church of Evelyn.
The Church of Evelyn. See, it came full circle. Now we have an understanding because some people were Googling Church of Evelyn. They're like, when are their services? So, but it's beautiful. And I don't know if you've had a chance to listen, but the episode where we talk about, do you need church to have a healthy spiritual life, and actually you were the first one to say no. And and it's beautiful because I think what we learned was there's a lot of practices around faith that you can have on your own. But we don't want to drive people out at the same time.
No,
we don't want to drive them
because
out.
again, the word says it's good for us to come together.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you can't have one. You can't just pick and choose.
Yeah.
But the whole denominations have been built on picking and choosing aspects of scripture that fits their agenda.
They could
agenda,
choose scripture.
their purposes.
I choose you.
Yeah.
That was a nerd in me. So I do have a question for all of you. And I really want to dive into, and I'm gonna tee up the question so you have time to think about it, is as we're going into the season of campaigning, and we're all not looking forward to how many ads we're going to see on TV every 8.5 seconds. What advice would you give either to people in the pulpit or people in the congregation as we enter this season around politics and whether or not or how that conversation comes into the church?
Well, if you're a faith-based person and you believe in God, when you make your decisions and you're listening to all the different politicians and in your districts and around the world, I try to look at everybody that I choose to be the best person for all of us. I take the time to really learn about where they're going to help everyone, especially in my community and around the world. So I would love more people to look at it in a different way. I know there's things that you're going to pick for yourself, personally, but when you make some of your choices, try to look at it. If you're in church, your community, what's going to help everyone? That's what I would love to see more of when people are making choices on the people they're going to choose.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah, I would think that the most fair and effective way about educating people is getting the pamphlets, getting the information, not choosing for anyone, but making the information available and having people available who are willing to answer questions without bias that people have so that they can figure it out. Because many times either people can't read or they just may not want to or don't comprehend the stuff. So again, social justice says, these are your options. Let me make sure that you're fluid or you're understanding these options so that you can make the best choice for your community and for yourself. So the education aspect without bias, without me pushing my thought onto you, but saying, this is what it is. This is what this means.
Yeah. Without being afraid to let you choose because I'm afraid of what you're going to choose. So I take your choice away.
Right. Letting people choose and love themselves, love them for who they are. Whatever you're choosing, this is it, but understand it.
Okay.
I would say disregard every ad that you see and every ad that you hear, because there may be an element of truth in it, and there's probably an element of untruth in it. And if you don't have a high discernment, if your discernment meter is not up, you're not going to know what is what, because a dressed up lie is still a lie. Right? And so, and then the vitriol that is coming from these ads today, I remember waking up and saying, when did we get here?
Yeah.
Where, what happened to you telling what you bring to the table as opposed to tearing down somebody else, just trying to make yourself look a little bit. No, you want to character smear them so that that's what's in people's minds. So then you become their only choice. And then it becomes like what you were talking about between Jesus and Barabbas. The people were thinking the lesser of two evils. They thought Jesus wasn't, because they said, "Oh, gotta get rid of him because they wanted us to, but we don't really like him either. But we only have these two choices. Let's just get the lesser of two evils."
Little did they know.
And
exactly.
pick that.
We do that.
When
Well,
do you
who's the
wanna
loudest?
pick?
Who's the loudest?
Yeah.
Who's loudest?
right.
Who's making the most noise in everything that they do?
Right.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that you shouldn't be voting for.
Right. But you gotta pay attention. But I know we can get desensitized to that man's inhumanity towards man today is, I've never really seen it like this in all of my years. I've not seen it like this. That was intentional. I've not seen it at this level. I know it existed. It has always existed, right?
Yeah.
But now there's a boldness about it that is just mind-blowing. But here's what I want to encourage people. The noisiest people are not the majority.
Ooh. Yes.
They just
That's
talk a lot and talk loud.
Yes.
And they're in your face.
you follow the crowd, they may lead you off a cliff.
Ooh, don't talk about the crowd.
Okay. So I'll start a whole new sermon, won't I?
Yes.
Okay. And so I think if there's one thing that I hope for as we head into this politics season, which by season, I mean, it's like a whole year at minimum.
It's been going on already.
It's already been going on.
Let's be honest.
But it's going to get more impactful and harder to get away from.
Yep.
And I think as we go into that season, what I want for us is what we've created here. I want us to sit down and have conversations with people who may think differently from us, and it be okay. I want us to be able to dive into what seem like divergent opinions and have a conversation, because we may be really closer together than we are apart, and we may not even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
That is really what I want for us this politics season, is to pause, listen, ask good questions from a place where you're not flipping tables because you're angry, but you're flipping tables because you just want to challenge the status quo in a polite and gentle way, not in a scared and timid way, but in a way that still respects the human sitting across from you. That's what I want for us.
I like it.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
For your audience, make no mistake, table flipping is a bold move.
It is. You can take
You are bold.
You are bold. You could take a bold move with
love.
Speak softly and carry a big stick. Like, really do it from a place of love. And I think that's the key, right? Is we have to question our own intentions. Why am I doing this? And what space am I coming from? And check ourselves before we check someone else. Okay.
Well, they say speak how you want to be spoken to.
That part. So as we head into this election season, speak how we want to be spoken to.
Taste your words before you serve them in case you have to eat them.
Okay, that part too.
I love that.
Add a little more salt. Take a little salt away. Might be too salty the first time.
And you may not know.
Yeah.
The reality is we get so ingrained in a way of being that we don't even know. It's like the frog. You put them in warm water and you turn the temperature up.
Slowly.
You turn up the vitriol. You turn up the hate mongering. You turn it up just a little bit. And then the frog doesn't even know he's immersed in hate.
And that is such a special perspective that you've brought in, because I am convinced that even the ones who are dividing us, that is not their intent all the time. There are people out there who are dividing us, and their intent is they genuinely want to save you and you and you. And they think their way is the only way. And they are going to beat it into you, because if I have to beat it into them, at least I save them. And that's what matters. But at the end of the day, it doesn't become clear that that's what is happening. Like, you may not see the bodies you leave in your wake to get to the goal.
Right. It becomes, you just want power and control, because how could you know better for me what's good for me than I do?
Yeah.
Oh, y'all making me want to talk about something else. I ain't going to say it.
Right?
She's just going to tease it, and then she going to
for
tell
it.
us what she's not going to
Go
say.
for it.
But as long as
Come
she
on.
lean in the mic, I don't care what she says. It's beautiful.
Say Hitler felt that way.
Oh, she said Hitler
Good
felt that way.
and evil. I'm clear that there were some people that are aligned with certain camps that can't sleep at night, but they're doing that thing out of fear of what somebody's going to do to them if they don't.
KKK
One,
felt that way.
if they don't do it, then what else do they have? It's a lot of that, but you were talking about fear.
That's it. That's what it is.
But the only way to erase fear is because the society gives us this blanket about a group of people, and we believe it and attribute it to an individual. Right?
Yep.
And the only way to combat that is what you're doing here with these Faith and Fire podcasts, is to sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
This is awesome.
Okay, so during this politics season, we're going to listen. We're going to lead with love. So thank you, ladies, for joining me for this conversation. It really has been a fruitful one. Dr. Joy, I'd like to see you keep that same energy for every future episode that you're in. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please join us for future conversations. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe. And let me just say, if you're listening on a podcast, it's audio, there were some faces in the room today. Be sure to hop over to YouTube and look for Faith Fire with Lady J, and look for us so you can see all this action that's happening right now. And if you're on YouTube, you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.